Hello, listeners, and welcome to the third and final part of this mini-series with original members of the Gay Liberation Front in honour of Pride Month this June. Here is Martha, Perry, Ron, Ellen, and Jason. I just wanted to ask you something about the early stages of the GLF. It's been mentioned already in this conversation that the term transvestite is now part of the term trans. And when I hear the term transvestite, it's derogatory in my mind. I feel like it's turned into a derogatory term over time. Same with things like tranny and queer, and even gay in some instances. But when I think of the term trans, I don't know that, and maybe this is like a generational thing with people my age now going on. I don't know that the term trans could ever be said in a derogatory way. I think that that's progress in terms of how things have changed over time. And I wonder if you can recall any legal or official changes in rights, law, legislation that happened as a result of the Gay Liberation Front and the activism work that you're all part of.
So, I want to say that right now, I've been appointed by the governor of Washington State as one of 15, and I'm the oldest commissioners on the Washington State LGBTQ Commission, which specifically advises the governor and the legislature about laws. And I'd be curious to know, and Ellen has mentioned that she's involved in political work now, and I don't know what that is, so I'm very eager to hear what that is. But I think I'll just say from my experience, after GLF, I mean, GLF was kind of the formative time of my life where all of these different things came together, and I began for the first time, and it took me a very long time after GLF to begin to have a sense of who I was. I can't say that I now have a full sense of who I am, but different things began to come together, and at a certain point, I was through years of like fighting, and I'm gay, I'm gay, I'm gay, and all of a sudden one day I realized, whoa, whoa, they've all heard it. I mean, I don't have to say that anymore. It's like, oh, you're gay. It's like the consciousness shifted. Then, of course, it was after that in the United States, at least, we're experiencing the counter shift on everything from women's rights with abortion and on. I mean, to women being, I mean, I have this vision of women literally being chained to beds, being forced to give birth to children against their will. As soon as this started, that was the vision that came in my mind. It is the most reprehensible. I cannot begin to describe the levels of fury that brings up in me.
I just wanted to say that I definitely did want to make a point of asking each of you how you feel about the regression that is taking place in some parts of the world at the moment, considering that you are all significantly involved in the progress that we've been able to make up to this point, which includes talking about official changes that have been made. Martha, you mentioned that you were fired from jobs when you had to come out to them because you were going to be making public appearances where you would be outed anyway. You can't fire people.
No, I was afraid. I was thought I'd be fired, but I wasn't. It turns out that one of the jobs that I had, this was before Harlem, the boss was a lesbian. I encountered her on a boat trip to Fire Island. The next job was working at Harlem Welfare Center, and nobody gave a damn. Our bigger issue at that point was the immense poverty, the assassination of Martin Luther King, all of the stuff that was going on in Harlem. And then after that was Barnard College, where again I had a lesbian boss.
Right. But there's a chance that you could have lost your job coming out as gay to your employers.
I thought that might happen.
Because that to me is
So
just the
that
most
took
wildest concept. Like that, you couldn't do that now. It would be illegal to fire somebody for their sexual orientation or identity, which again shows progress, but who knows how long that will last in
no
some
that
spaces.
if, okay, if you are a church or like a school that's a religious school, you can still fire somebody for being gay.
Sure.
You can fire a teacher. So that there's an exception made for groups like that. Um, and as far as things going backwards, I'm not really surprised. That's, the case throughout history, that you make progress and then you end up with some god awful regime. Um, we did not succeed in certain areas. We didn't overturn capitalism. We were certainly against that. What we've got is even worse economic inequality. The Vietnam War ended, and what do we do next? You know, a while later, we're involved in invading a couple of countries that never did us harm, like Iraq, and killing who knows how many hundreds of thousands of people. And that still goes on.
Yes.
And the economic inequality is much worse than it was when we were younger. So the younger generation has a lot on their plate, including, of course, climate change.
After that litany of fun events, I really see, as many people do, the Dobbs decision, the anti-choice decision, as the nose under the camel's nose under the tent. I mean, Clarence Thomas has made no secret of his interest in coming after same-sex marriage. So we are in a very, very precarious moment. Although I must say, when I was in the Gay Liberation Front, the last two things on my to-do agenda were gay marriage and serving in the military. I must admit that this came as, I kind of expected the revolution to come before those two things happen. I see that my family, my marriage is in danger now. It terrifies me. But if you said to my 24-year-old self, or however old I was in 1969, these are the top two things on our agenda, we said, are you nuts? With everything going on in the world, you want to serve in the military and marry me? I don't think so.
Yes, Perry.
Well, I think that this I say kind of backlash reminds me of a wonderful quote by Dick Gregory, the Black comedian. He was asked, what did he fear the white backlash? And he said, there's no such thing as the white backlash. There's only the hate front lash. And I really think that that's what this is. Having grown up in a totally bigoted, segregated world, horrifyingly homophobic world in the South, I now see the same people I grew up with, and they haven't changed. So they want to get their say. The thing that has really changed is that so much of our culture has actually changed. I mean, being queer has really surfaced. I mean, it's now part of popular culture, really part of pop culture. It's part of the art world. It's part of theater. I mean, you no longer have plays on Broadway where the gay character kills himself in the third act. I mean, God, you don't have anything like that anymore. Some of the biggest shows on Broadway have been about openly queer people. We have gay billionaires. We have a huge number of gay celebrities, openly queer celebrities. So of course we're going to have this hate front lash that's just furious about this now. I think that things are not going to be easy for the haters. I don't think they're going to be easy at all. I think rescinding same-sex marriage, that's going to be a bloody, ugly fight, because I know that I'm married, and we're not going to let that go without a real fight.
10 years or so after the implementation or the birth of the Gay Liberation Front, there is the AIDS epidemic. Do you feel like that again could be the hate front coming forward because so much progress is being made in terms of LGBT rights and recognition that the narrative is being thrown on its head again, Jason?
Okay.
Well, I edited a major book on holistic healing of AIDS, psychoimmunity and the healing process. I started the Castor Street Healing Group in San Francisco. I wrote maybe half the holistic healing articles that appeared in the gay paper in San Francisco, and I also, with a nutritionist, Denise Buzian, brought Louise Hay to San Francisco. And I'll tell you how I got involved in AIDS because it directly answers your question. When I got involved, what I saw, all the literature on AIDS it was this mysterious disease that surfaced among homosexuals, quote unquote, and Haitians. There was no known cause and there was no known cure, but everyone was going to die within 2 years who got it. And I looked at it with the mind of a child. And I said, wait a second. If they don't know what causes it, that means they don't know when people contract it. So if they don't know when people actually got it, how can they be so sure that everyone's going to die within 2 years? And I smelled a rat. That is, I smelled homophobia. Because homosexuality is the love of which we dare not speak its name. It's the crime against nature. And what I felt was that the medical establishment, especially the straight medical establishment, had taken all those feelings about homosexuality and applied them lock, stock, and barrel to this disease. And I felt it was important to get to a higher source of information, which I did by working metaphysically with trans-channel Kevin Ryerson and stuff, which probably would get into another one of your cult things because I've been involved a lot in metaphysics. I mean, I think a lot of us are, in one sense, we're everything your mother warned you about. Well, a lot of us are in our various aspects. But I really do feel that the AIDS epidemic and the initial approach to it, which was that it was a death sentence, was a projection of the mindset about homosexuality itself. And I also want to just very, very quickly, Casey, you mentioned something about transvestite having negative connotations. Well, Ellen was involved in the very famed NYU Weinstein Hall protest. And I just read an interview that you did, I forget with which historian, which you mentioned that STAR, Street Transvestites Action Revolutionaries, which was co-founded by Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, was formed in the basement of Weinstein Hall, if I remember correctly. Oh, thank
Yes.
God, you're nodding your head. And
It was.
so we were, people, transvestites were reclaiming or claiming the notion of transvestite as something as positive back in 1970. It's just that the rest of the world didn't catch up.
I just wanted to say that GLF and what we did in our confrontational politics, we paved the way for ACT UP. And this has been pretty much acknowledged that ACT UP's confrontational tactics came out of GLF's tactics. So without the radicalism of groups like the Gay Liberation Front and also to a certain degree Gay Activists Alliance, I think that AIDS would have gone through the queer community like, as they say, a hot knife through butter. We stopped a lot of the terror that the straight world was trying to give us through the activism of groups like GLF and then later on groups like ACT UP.
Martha, you're nodding there. Is there something that you would like to add to that?
No, I was just in agreement that activism is what makes a huge difference. And at this point, I'm feeling really frustrated uh, by COVID. At my age, I'm going to be 80 this year. I do not feel safe going out in demonstrations. All I can do is write and do Zoom things like this. But I'd be out there in the streets in spite of the snow uh, if it weren't for COVID. And that's driven me nuts the last 2 years.
Martha, you have a book coming out, and
I do. And I just got an advance copy.
Wow.
We Set the Night on Fire, Igniting the Gay Revolution, Martha Shelley.
Yeah, the picture is me actually in the Oscar Wilde Memorial
Wow.
Bookstore before the Stonewall riot. I was a baby.
That's amazing. When's the official publication date for that book?
June 13th.
June 13th, in Pride Month. Amazing. Everything
And you
is lining up wonderfully.
But you can also start ordering advance copies, I think, through Barnes & Noble and other outlets.
So it sounds as if you are all each in one way or another still involved in some form of activism work. So I wondered if we could just go around the circle before we finish up today, so that you can each tell everybody where you are in life now, and the work that you're doing. Martha, I think it'd be great to start with yourself, if that's okay.
Well, mostly what I've been doing is writing these blog posts, political stuff, some of it personal history, but others, like I did a 5-part series on the history of Iran from the time of the discovery of oil to the current protests. And what the background was, it wasn't just that people suddenly decided to protest. There's a whole lot of American and British involvement that made the situation the way it was. And right now I'm working on a piece on police killings of Black people. So these things go out on the internet, and that's about all I can do politically, except for helping my neighbors and sharing food and things like that.
Thank you, Martha. Ellen, could you please tell us what you are up to in this stage of your life?
Aging. Like many Jews in Santa Barbara, my spouse and I are members of the Unitarian Society, which we refer to as the Junitarian Society. I'm actually a lay leader, a lay worship leader. So part of my activism is I do almost every service that has to do with a Jewish holiday and many of the services that have to do with immigration. That's my major political activism now, is working on immigration issues. And a small group of us are supporting a young lesbian family with a small child who are here on what's known as humanitarian parole, hoping to get asylum status. So that takes up a considerable amount of my time working on the issue of America's hideous, immoral, dangerous immigration policies.
It's really important work as well. And I recognize how much time it takes to help with children. So I, again, am appreciative of you all being here today and giving me the time that you have. Perry, can I ask you, what are you doing in terms of activism at this point in your life?
I have always felt that my whole writing career has been a kind of activism, and it also came so much out of my that Gay Liberation Front mindset, that need to establish my own authenticity and the authenticity of what I do without apology. I'll be coming out with a new book in May called Trial by Night. It's 2 novellas. It'll be my 21st book. I'm also the co-founder of the Rainbow Book Fair, which will happen April 22nd here in New York. It's the largest LGBT book event in the country. We get about 100 different presses that show books. We get about 1,500 people come to it. And we're going to be having panels. We'll have a panel on history, a panel on comic books, a panel called Weird and Queer, which I have I wanted to establish. I wanted to put this panel together. The convergence of Gothic writing, horror writing, science fiction writing, and memoir in the queer community. And I'm really excited about that. So I'm doing that. And I'm also very involved, still involved with the Gay Liberation Front, with people who were in it, and you know, our role in history, which I'm a total pusher of it. I believe that the Gay Liberation Front was the most important LGBT organization in the history of the world. I still believe
that gives
that.
me goosebumps when you say that. It's so strange because to me now, and I don't know if this will be like a really alien concept, but people don't really come out anymore. In my experience, people just don't. Well, with a lot of individuals in my personal life that identify as part of the LGBTQIA plus community, there's never really had like that discussion's never really had to happen. It's just kind of like, oh, like it doesn't matter. And I don't, it's just such a strange thing now. And with Gay Town, in Liverpool having such a massive presence in the city, it's not strange to see individuals, you know, fully bearded men walking past you in dresses. It's just not, and it's not really something people would react to because it's just something that is part of society now in a lot of places.
This is the culture we created, though.
Exactly. And isn't that like, I feel like I'm living and breathing all of the things that you fought for. And I just feel like that's absolutely wonderful. I would never want to live in, and I understand that a lot of people still do, and some people listening that are part of the LGBT community will absolutely have experienced coming out or never because of high control religious groups and cultic environments that we explore on the show, and misogyny and patriarchy and all of those things. I just think it's wonderful to acknowledge that there are places in the world where people just don't have to do those things. And that stems from the incredible work that you've all done. Jason, could you please tell the listeners what you are up to in this part of your life?
Well, it's interesting. As Perry spoke about writing, I'm a senior contributing editor to Stereophile, which is high-end audio. I'm in this very curious place of being someone who has always opposed capitalism and just reviewed a pair of amplifiers that cost $106,000, weigh 238 pounds each. And, you know, only a very select group of people in the world have the money to spend $106,000 on 2 monoblock amplifiers. And I'm actually quite amused by that. But I also review recordings. And what excites me the most, because my focus is classical music, is within classical music, all the people who are writing operas about racism, about the oppression of Black people, about gay experiences, about immigration, I'm about to review a world premiere of A Thousand Splendid Suns at Seattle Opera, and a lot of it is about the oppression of women in Afghanistan, and finding ways to bring that into my reviews. It kind of some of the pieces that I review. And I have one editor at San Francisco Classical Voice who shares this political consciousness. And interestingly enough, we both went to Amherst College. And so he always picks those and he assigns them to me, and which works really well in that milieu. And of course, I am and hope to be, because it's not in my hands, but I hope to be reappointed for, because I was a substitute. I finished out someone else's term who retired, who withdrew from the commission. I hope to be reappointed to the Washington State LGBTQ Commission, which is only one of 3 state LGBTQ commissions in the country. So it's quite an honor. And also, like, I just did a thing of connecting, there's a project on trans rural voices. And I think I know all of the over 50 trans people who are out, at least, in Jefferson County, because I live in a rural county of 31 or 32,000 people. And so I live in a very different environment than everyone else. This is rural here. And I brought them together with the project, and that kind of fulfilled my identity as a Jewish matchmaker. I just felt really good about that. And speaking of feeling really good, before Ron speaks, and I'm used to calling him Puneet, which I suppose would be seen as his cult name, talks about what he's doing now. I just want to say that of all the people on the screen here, the one I know the least is Ellen. And if there's anything that I've been impressed with newly, it is the fact that Ellen comes across to me as a wise woman. And I believe that Zoom records, you'll have a Zoom record of this. And I would give anything to have it, because this is, I don't want to cry now, but this is a really precious moment of history for me, for us all to be together. And I really celebrate it. And I never realized that it would happen this way from Ron's initiative. And I knew nothing about you, Casey. And I'm just thrilled that this has happened. So thank you.
Thank all of you for being here, especially Ron for really putting this all together. It was his idea a few months back, and I'm really stoked. I don't even know what word I would use, but I'm stoked that we've been able to do this today. And that's kind of why I left you till last, Ron, so that I could ask you what you're up to today. We haven't heard as much from you today. I feel like you were perhaps giving your peers the space today after our conversation last time, but I would just love to hear from you about the work that you're doing now, other than organizing some really incredible Zoom talks.
Ron, you need.
Oh, I think because of what happened to me of being hospitalized psychiatrically and believing there was something wrong with me, that's a message that there is nothing wrong with you, that appeals to me. And I've so I'm very involved in San Diego Unified School District has some of the most progressive policies in the country. And I just happen to have a personal friend who's in charge of what they call youth advocacy, which is anti-bullying and diversity and supporting all the schools. And so for example, yesterday I spoke to a couple hundred kids in a school assembly. And even though, of course, the world has changed, I think that there is something about an older person saying to teenagers, there's nothing wrong with you. And it was, there's a wonderful new documentary called Cured that profiles, among other people, this woman that Ellen was referring to, who was on the ferry with her, Barbara Giddings, who was with others responsible for convincing the American Psychiatric Association to change that diagnosis of that homosexuality was some kind of disease. I also want to add, anyway, I really like being with kids. I'm also mentoring a teenager who wrote that he only wants an LGBT ally, and that's in a private Catholic school. So that's also how much some of the organized religions have changed in wanting to support kids. The one thing that perhaps wasn't emphasized, but it was implicit in some of what Perry was saying, was that many of us in the Gay Liberation Front lived together, and it was also part of those living experiences that, at least for me, like Jason, I lived with in two different living situations, that how we started to feel okay about ourselves, and this authenticity that Perry described, and that we didn't have to apologize for who we were, and that then we were able to go out and do that confrontation and political activism, and so that I personally didn't feel isolated any longer the way I had. I mean, I know that in those mental hospitals where I was, there were a significant number of women and men who could not speak to each other about what they were experiencing, their same-sex attraction or in their gender identification, and that there were many therapists who were, we use the word gay as a broad, and I also wanted to emphasize that the Gay Liberation Front was the first, what Martha was calling the homophile organizations, was the first organization that openly used the word gay, that we don't have to be ashamed about that anymore. And it was almost a joking title, because the listeners may not realize that the army of North Vietnam was the National Liberation Front. And these who defeated the United States in spite of all that wealth and firepower. So the name Gay Liberation Front had a humorous but totally serious quality that may not be culturally appreciated now.
And I also want to say that right now, since a lot of us will look to a publication in the United States like the New York Times for its research and its investigative things, number one, it was the Gay Liberation Front that was protesting outside the New York Times because they refused to use the word gay. You'd have someone very important, lesbian or gay man, would die. They lived with their lover, because we use the term lover a lot now. People use the word partner, which is a bit corporate for me. They lived with their lover for 30 years, and they listed the person's parents and brothers and and nieces and nephews, and they didn't even mention the person they'd shared the bed with for the last 35 years of their life. And now, all of a sudden, we come full circle because there was a big statement about the anti-trans bias of the New York Times. So we're back. There we are, back in 1970 again. I just wanted to put that in there.
I just had a short thing that I wanted to end on before we say goodbye today. I don't know how often you're all able to get together. I just wanted to make a point of saying that 1969 was, by my calculation, 54 years ago. And it is incredible that you all maintain contact with one another, that you're all so open about sharing your experiences. I am 30 years old this year. My father is 54. What an incredible friendship, and what an incredible life you have all shared with one another. I know that there are aspects of major religions. I know that there are conversion therapy camps and programs that still exist. I know that there is potential regression with laws being taken away and rights being changed in terms of the LGBT community. And it might be idealistic when I sit here and say that I live in a society where not everybody has to feel that they need to hide themselves. But I think it's important also to be a little bit idealistic in order to highlight the significance in what you have contributed to the rights of LGBT people today. I don't know how to summarize this conversation. It feels monumentous to me. And I'm just so grateful for your time today, and for your willingness to come and share with myself and the listeners, and to you, Ron, for putting this all together. So thank you, each and every one of you, so much, and for the work that you continue to do in the world. What a group of incredibly inspiring individuals. Thank you so much.
Well, hurrah
Thank
for
you.
us.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I will
Thank
let
you.
each of you go, and I will end the call there. But enjoy the rest of your day, or at least manage through it with the snow. And I hope that you all take care, and maybe I'll get the chance to talk to you again one day. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Martha,
you.
take care of those chickens.
Bye.
That is the end of this week's mini-series with original members of the Gay Liberation Front in honour of Pride Month this June. For full-length, ad-free episodes, you can support me on patreon.com/The Cult Vault for only £1 a month. To get in touch with me, you can find me at cultvaultpodcast@gmail.com or follow me on Twitter and Instagram @cultvaultpod. I'm your speaker, Casey, host of the Cult Vault podcast.